And now I have a bunch of stuff to talk to you about cinematography. And to be very honest, like these two parts are like one of my favorite topics to talk about. So now we're getting into the fun stuff. Okay, so when we're talking about cinematography, I'm going to talk a little bit about general terms of cinematography, and then I'll get more specific to motion graphics with staging and composing or compositing. But in cinematography, I want us to talk about shot sizes, POV, angles, screen direction, depth of field, and moves and aspect ratios. Okay. Cinematography is extremely important, and it's the art and science of photography, of storytelling. And believe it or not, cinematography is involved in pre-production, production, and post-production. Oftentimes we just think, oh, cinematography is just a part of pre-production. But that's not true at all. You work, if you're an animator, you're working with camera rigs, you're designing camera moves. In post-production, you want to add camera shakes, you want to add any kind of glitches, noises, and these are all parts of cinematography. Now in CG, what's CG? Beautiful. In computer graphics, there are two basic types of cinematic compositions. One is a camera-based composition, and the other is a light-based composition. Now, for today's talk, I've kind of just stayed more closer to camera-based compositions. I'm not talking too much about lighting for today. But just so you know, the lighting is one way of creating staging and composing, creating cinematography. When you're thinking of a production, you want to think of the film, the entire film. And the entire film is actually made of sequences. Now these sequences, if we come up with a big category, like the big umbrella, then it's beginning, middle, and ending. The 3-act structure, right? So there's the introduction, there's the inciting incident, the rising incident, the climax, and resolution. So these are sequences. Each sequence has scenes inside of it. So the introduction will have several scenes. And in every scene, you have shots. So shots make up a scene, scenes make up a sequence, and the culmination of sequences gives you a full film. Whether it's motion graphics, whether it's film, whether it's a game, this is the same kind of structure that we break down stuff in. Now there's a lot of different types of shots and angles. And believe it or not, we don't need to know all of them. But what we need to know is that different shots and different angles communicate a different kind of a response in our viewers. So we need to have somewhat of a clear understanding of what kind of shots create what kind of an impact, an emotional impact in our viewers. And how we categorize each different shot through a camera-based composition is through field size and angle. So what is the size of your field of view, or what angle is your camera set up on? Now, in order to understand field of view, we all have changed our focus on a camera, right? The focal length, and that gives us, or we've used different types. Even if you're working in CG, you've used different types of lenses in a camera, right? So you've used a narrow or a long lens or a wide lens. And the basic crux of that is that a wide lens will give you a wider spread of a shot, so you'll capture more information, and then with a long lens you'll get into a detail, so more of a close-up of a shot. Do you guys know this production? Yes, of course you know this production. So if you guys think about how that story was told, right about the first rising incident, the story starts with the guy who puts that coin in the vending machine, right? And then those are long shots. But right when they introduce the main story, this is an establishing shot. And the difference between an establishing shot and a long shot is that an establishing shot gives you the whole scenario of what that space looks like. So it tells you in detail what the environment your hero exists in. And then you have a medium shot, and a close-up shot makes you feel really connected to your hero. Now, I am looking at the time and we are running a little late, so I'll show you 2 minutes of this production. Okay, well, I won't show you the entire production. Why? Because we'll go majorly over time, and it's a 10-minute long production. But I highly recommend that all of you should watch this film because it is absolutely stunning. And right over here is an example. So it's called Premiere Autumn. And this is an establishing shot where you can see where this character comes from. So you can see his environment, which is dark and desolate and cold. And then you can see the girl's environment, which is warm and there's a lot of vegetation and it's cool and it's inviting and soft. And the difference between an establishing shot and a long shot is right over here. So you just see the long shot of the girl in her environment walking into that cold, desolate place. Right over here we see the character in his sort of establishing shot, which is a long shot, and you get a glimpse of his world. But an establishing shot is a glimpse of that entire world. Okay? I'm going to show you, what did we say, 2 minutes. Okay, Chrome, where are you, Chrome? All right. All right. So yeah, it's a 10-minute video. Unfortunately, we won't have time for it, but we can watch a little bit. So. What kind of a shot is this one? Long shot. Okay, what about this one? Medium shot. Okay, good. This one? Close up. Good. This one? Long shot. Yes. What about this one? Good. And you can see he goes from close to far for both the characters, right? The director is going from close to far and he's establishing where these characters live, where they come from. Okay, I'm going to be really bad After creating all that anticipation, I'm going to pause this film, okay? Please forgive me, but I highly recommend you guys watch this production. Well, sorry. The end. Well, no, it's a long production. It's a 10-minute production, so all right. Okay. And I promise I have better stuff coming up for you, so no love lost. Okay. So what we can gather, if we can come up, if we can decide, okay, what are these different shots communicating to us? If we look at a mid shot right over here, it gives us a totality of the mood of your character in that moment, right? A mid shot. But when you come up to something like a close up, you get locked in this character's eyes, and you can't really, there's no other focal point. You can't move around in this shot. So it's extremely intense, and the power of the gaze of this character is kind of forcing you to feel exactly what she's feeling. Versus over here, we still have a lot of room to play, right? We can see the foliage, we can see the rock, we can see the tree and the light rays and whatnot. So we still have a lot of room to sort of like be inventive of our own story. However, a close-up is a very powerful gaze. Usually it is a gaze, even if it's a Coca-Cola bottle. And that forces you to feel that moment that the director is trying to describe. So that is the field of view, is the size of what you're able to create in that composition, right? So different shots and field of view. That's one way of categorizing. The next way of categorizing shots is through camera angles. And the most typically used angle for television, for broadcast, and maybe most of us don't even know what broadcast is because we're all streaming so much information, right? But say like a news channel. How many people actually watch the news? 1.5%? Okay, 1.5. All right. When you're old like me, then you will find the news a little bit more interesting. What about like the Daily Show, or let me think of something cool. Yeah, okay, Eduardo watches the Daily Show. Eduardo, very cool. Okay, or any kind of like televised streaming. So give me an example of a show that is eye level. Which one? Okay, I got one for you. Rick and Morty. Rick and Morty is eye level, right? They don't use a lot of high angles or low angles, right? Or Family Guy. Or, see, I'm going into animation and now I'm getting a lot of response. What are some other, so that type of programming, which is sitcoms. Does anybody knows of Friends? Okay, phew. I'm not that old, but I'm old now. But shows like these, right? So trying to think of more, but I think I've come up with a couple of examples, and that's good for now. Even sports. Now some sports like soccer, yeah, we have a high angle. But say other sports might have a low, golf has a low angle, as an eye level angle, and some other sports will have a eye level. So we want to understand what kind of streaming or what kind of content is told at eye level. Okay? And then you have a high level or a bird's eye view or a low angle and a worm's view. Okay. Do you guys know which production is this? Ratatouille. How many people have seen Ratatouille? Oh, I love this crowd. You guys are super awesome. You're my kind of people. One of my favorite Pixar movies is Ratatouille. And what happens is basically, for the few that haven't seen, this guy is Remy, right? And then Remy loves French cuisine, and he has a passion for being a chef. And finally, so what happens is he lives in a rat colony that exists in the attic of this old grandma's house. And he's so obsessed with cooking that he would often go down to her kitchen and just like smell all the ingredients, like saffron and different herbs like thyme and rosemary. And one day his brother comes along and he's basically showing him all these different ingredients, and he's trying to educate him on the art of culinary, French cooking. And he...
Do you think he's a meal and sees the chef, or he just imagines the chef?
Oh, so Gustav, that's an interesting question. I want to say he imagines. No, I don't think there's real spirit, but it's in it, that chef is probably a part of Remy now, but he's seeing him as an alter ego, but yeah, Remy is the main hero, I would say. Yeah, excellent question. I love that. Okay. So yeah, in the beginning of the film, there's Remy and his brother, and they're going through all this stuff, and he opens up Gustav's cookbook, right? And he's like, this is the Bible of cooking. You don't understand, whatever the brother's name. And all of a sudden, the grandma discovers Remy, a rat, in her kitchen. So what she does is she grabs her air gun or rifle, whatever, she starts blasting, like shooting the rats. And then she realizes that there are more rats up in the attic, and she shoots, brings the whole attic down, and there's a whole rat colony that falls down, right? And then they have to escape because she's just on fire. She's like trying to kill them all. So they all jump out of the window into that little stream of water. You guys remember the stream water? And then Remy gets left behind, but somehow he makes it because he wants to grab the Gustav cookbook, his Bible, and he jumps on the Bible, and the Bible kind of floats on that little stream, and it goes under to the sewage area where really we find a lot of rats, right? But by this time, he's lost. He's been dislocated from his colony, and he's the only one left. And that's the Gustav that Eduardo's talking about, because in that moment, he has his mentor come up, just like his hero's journey. And in his hero's journey, this spirit-like character, Gustav, is his mentor. And at that moment, Gustav, do you guys remember what Gustav says to Remy at that point? What is the advice? Yes, that you don't need to be attached to this physical book anymore. You can let go of this book. Believe in your heart. Go out there and see what the world has to offer to you. So that's when Remy climbs out of the sewage, and he realizes he's in the heart of Paris. And Gustav's restaurant is right over there. He makes it to the restaurant. He finally finds that human. He pulls his hair like a puppet, and he makes him act like, you know, his puppet, and they find a way to communicate, and he starts cooking. So Remy controls the human so that the human can start cooking. And Remy is such a refined chef. He's been studying Gustav's recipes for all his life, that this little busboy, a busboy is someone who just cleans the plates, is now this mega chef, and he's making these grand culinary dishes, and he's blowing the minds of his peers and his co-workers. At one point in the story, Remy's doing a real good job. Like, he's living the life. His dream has come true. He's working in this beautiful French restaurant, and he's getting to cook finally. What happens at night time, he discovers his brother again. And his brother's like scrounging through the trash can. And he's like, no, brother, don't worry about that. You come with me. And he takes him to the restaurant. He gives him all these cheeses or whatnot from the freezer. And then he connects with his father. And his father at this moment in the story says, oh my God, Remy, thanks for, it's so amazing that we found you. You're so important for us. You're my son. You belong to the colony. Come home now. Come home. And Remy says to his father, he's like, no, I'm not going to come back. I love this place. And at this point, his father gets really upset. He's like, what? You're not going to come back? but you're a rat and you're working for humans. These humans, they kill us. Like, how can you do this? Now, the director chooses a high angle and a low angle to tell the different stories. And what happens in this high angle shot is you got your actor here and your camera is placed at a high position and it looks down at the character. And what it does as a cinematography effect is it squashes the body. So it makes that character look really small and weak. So imagine when you look down on someone, right? There's usually a baby or a small animal, right? And you know that you have that point of control because you're taller than them. And then when they switch to when the father is talking, then they switch to a low angle. And in that way, you know, when you were a baby and someone was yelling at you and they were tall and big, then you're looking up like that. And what that does is that in your field of view, it stretches the head and it blurs out the background. And remember the gaze that we talked about in the close-up shot? So that gaze gets very, very controlling. And that is a cinematic effect. So it's a low angle and a high angle. And right there, the director is switching between low and high to create that extra intensity in the story, to make us feel like Remy is very vulnerable in this moment. Remy is being attacked. Now imagine if they did this at eye level. Would it have the same impact? No, right? Okay, all right, moving forward, there's a lot of information about high angle, low, but the power of high angle and low angle is just extreme. We can't not talk about it. A bird's eye view is usually looking all over the entire space that the story is laid out in. And that is often used as a what kind of shot when we look at the whole environment? Oh my God, beautiful. 500 points to whoever guessed establishing shot. Beautiful. Okay, worm's eye view really puts us in the position of the character. So we see the world through the character's eyes. And that creates that feeling of vulnerability, or that feeling of, okay, we are literally in the shoes of this character, which has an impactful effect on storytelling. Moving forward, I want to talk about the Batman angle. Yes?
A Bug's Life is filmed on a worm's view angle,
Yes. Yes.
an eye level angle.
A Bug's Life, well, a lot of shots in there are point of view shots, and they are from the bug's eyes, and then some shots are definitely from outside as a subjective view. So I'd say both. Yeah, good question. Okay, so a Dutch angle or a Batman angle literally comes from Batman Productions, where we see Batman and he's always portrayed as very straight. Have you guys ever seen Batman turn his head? No, right? His costume is like so robust, he literally has to do this, okay? And as a character, he's always straight. He runs like this, he walks like this. I don't even know how he eats and does other stuff. They never talk about that. But Joker, every time we see Joker, you know the new Joker movie's coming out? Yeah. Yes. Okay. Joker's always offset. He's always like, oh, hey, Batman, what are you doing? And what that does is, now, as human beings, we love symmetry. And we think that symmetry is equivalent to beauty, is equivalent to right, is equivalent to balance. And when we see something that is asymmetrical, that is at an angle, we're like, wrong. There's something off here. There's an off balance. Even like when we talked about the square and the circle and the triangle, that had a lot to do with symmetry and how we perceive the meaning of symmetry. So the director over here portrays Joker at an offset angle, so that we automatically think there's something wrong with Joker. God knows in a different world Joker might be a hero, but we see Joker as a villain. And that is, a lot of it has to do with the cinematic approach that the director chooses. Moving on, Eduardo, right over here, subjective and objective. A subjective view is the point of view of a character. And an objective view is the camera looking at the character. And both of these have a huge impact on storytelling. One is it makes you feel as vulnerable as the character itself, and that is subjective. So when you look through the character's eyes is subjective, and when the camera is looking at the character, that is objective. Now I want us to do an exercise. I'm going to show you a clip, and I'm going to reduce the volume so that I can hear your responses. I want you guys to tell me when you see a subjective, which is point of view shot, and when you see an objective shot. And the clip that I have for you is Iron Man 3. Now this moment in time in the film is very impactful, because what happens is Iron Man, or Robert Downey Jr., Tony Stark, he basically goes on a live media and he tells the terrorist villains to come and attack him and his home residence. So he makes this very bold sort of like statement, and then the terrorist villain, whoever it is, they come and attack him and they destroy his whole house. The director chooses a real nice mix of objective and subjective shots to tell us this part of the story. Okay, so I will open up the shot.